Welcome to Patina Nation. I'm Mike Harris, the CEO of Patina Solutions. Today's program is Step Up, Stand Out, and Understand Your Personal Branding. We're very pleased to have Sanjay Patel with us today. He's going to have a great program for us to really make sure we all understand the power of personal branding. A little bit about Patina Nation. You may know it's our vision to be the best online talent community for the independent consultants. And we want to make you the best and most successful independent consultant you can be. And that's whether you're working for yourself, working for Patina, or even working for our competitors. And the Patina Nation is a group of talent that comes from a lot of different industries and a lot of different backgrounds. And we know there's a lot of independent consultants that are doing that type of work now as a career choice. And some of you folks might be doing it on a temporary basis. Maybe you're in transition, but we've got just an outstanding collection of talent in the Patina Nation. So joining Patina Nation as a member affords a lot of benefits for you. It does not cost anything to enroll as a member in Patina Nation. You're going to have a lot of professional development opportunities like the program we're going to hear today. There's a lot of ways for you to make money in addition to working on projects and engagements that we may have for you to work with our clients. So there's a lot of different ways to make money. We're continuing to add benefits for independent consultants. We have a solo 401k plan and very soon a group medical insurance option. We have a range of business support services, things like IT help desk. If you need help with your computer, we've got folks that are very good at solving problems on a very affordable basis. We have Patina Lifestyle, which is some really interesting stuff to sort of help you in things that are maybe not business related, getting ready for Medicare and understanding Social Security, and maybe thinking about what am I going to do with my career now? Maybe I've put in 30 years and want to do something different. So a lot of programs like that, several different marketing tools and resources. And then we're really excited about Patina Connects, and that is a great way for you to be connected in an online forum with other independent consultants like you around the country. So you can learn about all of that at patinanation.com. If you're listening and you're not a member of patinanation.com, please go to our website. It's very easy to enroll, and again, it doesn't cost you anything. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sanjay Patel from New Transitions. And Sanjay has a great book. It's called From Layoff to Takeoff. And he's going to talk to us today about Step Up and Stand Out personal branding. Sanjay, thanks so much for coming in and doing the program for us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to not address you, but the entire Patina Nation. It's exciting. And this topic, in some respects, is basic, but on the other hand, it's the critical aspect of anyone's journey, especially when you're an independent consultant. Personal branding is not something you think about every single day, but it's something that's on display every single day. This presentation serves as a primer for future presentations, interactive discussions on this topic. So without further ado, Patina Nation, I'm going to ask each and every one of you, do you think of yourself as a brand? And be honest, most people in my network don't think of themselves as brands, and that's not surprising. But as we talk about the program today, you will understand and appreciate why branding is so important. But before we go there, we need to lay a foundation for a practical definition for branding, specifically personal branding. What do I mean by that? It's not something you're going to find in Webster's dictionary. It's not something you're going to find in the consulting book of knowledge. It's rather a very simple concept: how others think, feel, and believe about you and your abilities and attributes. What do I mean by that? Your knowledge, experience, and skills. This is a practical definition for branding that we will build on for the rest of this program. To help illuminate this concept called personal branding, I use a nice little analogy, which some of you may find a little silly, but it's called, what do you see when you look in the mirror? It's the mirror concept. So let's take a step back. Everyone here listening goes through a daily routine every single day. You wake up, you get ready for whatever you're going to do for the day, whether you're going to go to work, you're going to go to the gym, whatever you're going to do. You get up, but I'm guessing there's going to be a point where you look in the mirror. And if for no other reason, to validate that you don't have red eyes from being out late last night or having a party or what have you, but you look in the mirror. So I'm going to ask you, what do you see when you look in the mirror? Now, if you say a reflection, okay, you get a gold star for stating the obvious, but you're missing a much more deeper view or perspective, and that is, what do you see when you look in the mirror? What do I mean by that? Let's ask you 3 more questions here. How do others see your personal brand? How do others hear your personal brand? We'll get back to that one, because that stumps people, because when you look in the mirror, you don't hear anything, you just see something. And then ultimately, what is the defining image of your personal brand? Okay, what am I getting at here? What you see is not what you necessarily understand, because you're seeing the obvious, and that's your reflection. But at the end of the day, what you see in the mirror, you need to understand, is what everybody's seeing all day long with anything you do and anyone you collaborate with on a daily basis. So what do I mean by how do they hear your brand? Well, that's what people are saying about you and your brand. So it helps to think about your brand, not every single moment of the day, but on occasion. For example, I've done this presentation in various formats to audiences around the world. And every time I'll ask, how many here have a LinkedIn profile? Many people raise their hand. Then I ask them, when was the last time you looked at and reviewed your LinkedIn profile and updated it? All of a sudden the hands go down. Why? Because their time is precious. Life is too busy. There's just so much going on. The last thing you want to do is update your LinkedIn profile, because it's just not something that you think is relevant or something that you need to do at that moment. So then I ask a real good softball question. How many projects have you been on in the last 12 to 18 months? All these hands go up and say, oh yeah, have you been on more than one? Yeah. How many? About 4. So let me ask you again, when was the last time you updated your LinkedIn profile? And they're like, oh, well, the light bulb just went on. I guess I do have something more to say for my journey. That's the whole point here. What you see in the mirror is a lot deeper than what you see that's obvious. Now, what you see in the mirror, I'm getting at, is a concept called attributes, the next area of personal branding. Attributes help define and help people understand and appreciate what you have to offer as a brand. Now, let me go back a little bit here, and I needed to set the tone for what branding is all about. And we need a practical definition before we dive into the particulars, the specifics regarding personal branding. If you look up personal branding in the dictionary, you're not going to find it. If you look it up in a consulting how-to book, you're not going to find it. Is it nebulous? Yes. Is it critical? Absolutely. Is it something thought of immediately? Absolutely not. But personal branding is really basically how others think, feel, and believe about you as a person and your skills and abilities and your attributes, which is what those are. In other words, personal branding relates directly to your reputation. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it and how you present yourself. And when how you present yourself is not just how you look, it's how you actually collaborate one-on-one or one in groups. But these attributes, this is a little exercise I offer to all of my audiences. And I gotta be honest with you, it's been a challenge for many people to come up with answers to this practical exercise. And here are the rules. And I challenge everyone in Patina Nation to do this at some point between today and the next month. That should be plenty enough time to go through this simple exercise. Here are the rules. 8 one-word descriptors, if you will, of what you think your personal brand is. How you would define it. 1 word. And no, you can't use the same word eight times. No hyphenated words. And no, you can't use synonyms. That would be too easy. 8 different distinct ways to describe your brand. Now, if you have not thought of your personal brand, I can understand why this is going to be a challenge. So I put you on the spot. But this, if nothing else, this will nudge something in your mind saying, you know what? How do I want people to think about me? How do I want people to think about my brand? What is it I offer to them of value? Because at the end of the day, if you remember one of the core mission statements of Patina Nation, it's to become a trusted partner. Now, that's synonymous with my audiences, which are typically internal audit folks, again, very closely related to accounting and finance folks, to become a trusted advisor. What do we mean by that? That's because what I mean by that is you are not only recognized as a subject matter expert, but you're recognized as a person that is very easy to work with, very easy to understand, and have no problems having the concept of accept nothing, challenge everything, and that doesn't lead to any negative outcomes. It leads to only positive outcomes. So becoming a trusted partner as an independent consultant to your client. At the end of the day, I've been on many, many project teams. And my goal on the project team was not to have the most knowledge on the team, but to be able to manage the client. And by doing so, I led with, my goal was to get the client promoted. The spotlight on the client. You do that, and you will be invited back the next time a project comes along. Maybe not always, but it's amazing. I'll give you a segue, quick story. I did a Sarbanes-Oxley project for a company that was private that was going to go public. So they invested quite a bit of project money to do a triangle offense, Chicago, Atlanta, and Houston. Turns out Chicago was raised the bar of the project. We did more, we went above and beyond the call of duty to the point where Atlanta and Houston were called into action saying, you guys are deficient. Well, here's the funny thing. The company never went public. They didn't get acquired. So they did all this SOX work for no reason. No, so I thought. 6 months later, I get a call from the CFO saying, can you come back and test our controls? We didn't have to do that. He certainly didn't have to call us, but the relationship we forged, the trusted partner status that we achieved, that was validation because they called us back. And I would imagine that you folks in Patina Nation have either earned that in some respects or have experienced that type of situation. If you have, then you are on the cusp of taking advantage of what we're talking about today, and that's personal branding. So again, getting back to this exercise, 8 one-word attributes of what your brand would be. Now to help you go along with this exercise, I've done this with many people. And like I said, about 90%, if not more, have struggled to come up with eight words. My dear friend, Jack, did this exercise, and yes, he needed some help from me, but he came up with some really, some interesting concepts, some interesting words here. Skills, being dependable, resourceful was a very good one. Obviously experience, being respectful, having a good attitude, obviously being ethical, and I'll get into that a little bit of levity later on. But it's a simple exercise that we all can use practically today to begin to define and understand what our brand really is. Now, once you've come up with your attributes, they lay the foundation for what I call the 3 C's of personal branding. And for those of you who are on LinkedIn, you will find this actually on LinkedIn, because I just authored an article out on LinkedIn called 3 C's of Personal Branding, and I'll be presenting the highlights of it in this program right now. Very simple, 3 C's. They stand for character, competency, and credibility. Simple terms. I like keeping things simple, especially when it comes to branding, because it's nebulous to begin with. But what do I mean by character, competency, and credibility? There are various attributes that fall under these three C's. And this is not an exhaustive list, folks. We can spend an entire program all day just on this particular concept called the 3 C's of branding, because I have a variety of interactive exercises that help nurture this concept and clearly define how it builds what your personal brand is. So let's start with character. 3 common attributes there are ethics, honesty, and attitude. I think everyone pretty much understands what these 3 mean. And if you don't, we can engage in discussion offline and give you some extended training, but I digress. It's very simple to understand the ethics, the honesty, and the attitude. And the attitude's interesting because anyone here understand that attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. It's kind of like when you walk into a room, and I've done this when I taught grad school. I walk into my graduate school class, and I have this frown on my face. And the funny thing is this because I'm thinking about something else, but it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. So you know what? I know every day can't be rosy, but smile as much as you can. Be positive in everything you do and everyone you associate with. Competency. Okay, now this gets to the technical aspects of what you do, and that is knowledge, skills, and being resourceful. I want to harp at one particular attribute, and that's called skills. I'm going to ask you a challenging question right now, and I've debated this question with many executives in my network, including professors in university, and that is, what is the most important skill in your repertoire of skills? In fact, let me ask Mike, what is your most valuable skill, Mike?
My most valuable skill is probably communication. I have to communicate a lot of messages to audiences, both verbally and in writing, and I've got to make it clear and interesting in a lot of cases and exciting. So one of my most important skills is I've got to be a great communicator.
Well said. give Mike a gold star because he's absolutely right. I am such a firm believer in communication. I got a master's in communication from Northwestern. Okay, so what does that mean? They taught me how to talk. No, that's not what it is. Communication is by far two things: the lifeline of every relationship in your journey, personal or professional. Lifeline of every relationship. Secondly, it is the foundation of every transaction around the globe. I don't care if you're talking about currency. I don't think if you're talking about cryptocurrency, blockchain, whatever you're talking about, anything that's going on, communication is the foundation of every transaction. You remember those two things, those two axioms, and you're way ahead of the path. But communication, why is it so important? Mike is right. I have a concept called the 4 C's. That's not part of this presentation. It's part of the dynamic communication presentation that I do. But the 4 C's are: you speak clearly, concisely, coherently, and confidently. But then there are 4 C's for nonverbal. Anyone hear about nonverbal? And I'm not talking about body language, even though that's the most prevalent form of nonverbal communication. I'm talking about writing reports. How many of you have written a project report for the projects you've been on, or an audit report for an audit engagement that you've done? You write clearly, concisely, coherently, and convincingly. So the difference is you speak confidently, you write convincingly. And you know what? I segue to the forms of communication. Most people say, well, yeah, you communicate to inform, you communicate to persuade, you communicate to entertain, etc. At the end of the day, communication is always about persuasion. And I'll tell you why. Because you, in your ability to communicate, you want one of 4 things, if not all 4. You want audience to think, believe, feel, or take action on what your message is. And folks, if you get all 4, you can name your own island. But you'll be lucky to get at least one of those. And if you do, I consider yourselves very, very fortunate. More importantly, communication, the impact of it has is it actually enhances and makes your other skills more effective, such as managing projects, managing people, negotiating contracts. Now, if you come to grips with what your attributes for personal branding are, then let's ask the next discussion question to Patina Nation. And you know what? This is funny. I just had an interview yesterday, and I get to ask the most entertaining question at the interview. I asked somebody, if you could be any brand in the world, which one would you be? Now, I've even asked the CFO candidate this. Now, you'd be wondering, what in the world are you doing talking to a CFO candidate and asking what brand he or she is? Well, it's a nebulous concept, and I'd like to see how people articulate themselves to such a simple question, which poses a real challenge. And when I asked it yesterday, she took about 45 seconds before she answered. And I thought, you know, most people say, well, wait a second, she's not on the ball. Actually, I'd rather they take time and be thoughtful about their response than just spit something out. So if you could be any brand in the world, which one would you be, members of Patina Nation? Here's a few examples. Most people tell me I'm going to be Apple because I'm innovative. Well, don't get me started on Apple because I'm an Android guy and I think Apple's rotten to the core. But that's just me. Google. Anyone recognize the white cartoon character here on this slide? That's the Michelin Man. And I'm an owner of BMW, so I kind of relate to BMW myself. But at the end of the day, these are global brands. Everything we do in every day of our life. Remember I told you, get up in the morning, you get ready. You use certain brands to get ready. Whether you use Crest toothpaste, you use Head & Shoulders shampoo, you drink Starbucks coffee when you're on your way to work. We gravitate to brands that represent an extension of who we are, what our personality is. This is why the automakers spend billions of dollars in doing consumer behavior analysis, because they know their cars are an extension of their customers' personalities. All right. So I've given you examples of what positive brands, positively perceptive brands are around the world. What brand would you be? Now let's talk to the flip side. Which brand would you not be? Here's what I told you, I promised to bring a little bit of levity into the presentation. Which brand would you not be? Enron. Anyone remember Enron? You know, I was with Arthur Anderson, but I had nothing to do with that implosion. Enron, we should have known, Patina Nation, something was wrong when the logo was a crooked E. I know that's a corny joke, but it slays everybody around the world when I present it. Trust me. So, moving on. For those of you who have thought about personal branding, kudos to you. For those of you who have not thought about personal branding, there are ways to not only develop, but nurture and enhance your brand over time. What I call over the professional journey. Now, you're talking to somebody who's actually been in multiple industries. I've changed careers 4 times. I think I lost track, at least 4 times. I've been in all 3 sectors of the economy, public, private, and not-for-profit with the Rotary Foundation. I've been in the public sector for nearly 10 years. I can't believe it's 10 years with the state of Illinois. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer with the Illinois Power Agency. But I love doing this personal branding work on my own time because it really allows me to engage with some unbelievably talented and extraordinarily experienced folks who have such a wealth of knowledge and experience, yet they never spend time on a concept called personal branding. So how do you enhance your brand? Well, first of all, there are a number of things you can do. Academic achievement, professional certifications, many of which you have. CPA, I know a friend of mine has every C credential under the sun. That's great. And I'll talk about why that isn't the end all be all at the end of this presentation. Client testimonials. How many of you in Patina Nation have had client testimonials that have either validated or shined a spotlight on the positive work or the good work that you and your team have done, either individually or as a team, as I mentioned? Social media. Here it goes. There's the LinkedIn discussion again. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? When was the last time you looked at it? Folks, I've been laid off twice in my life, and we're still recovering from the first one. Layoff isn't the end. Contrary to popular belief, it's not the end. It's actually a renewal. It's a beginning. And for those of you who go out and actually get my book, I talk about something called the emotional psychological spectrum. You go from reaction, which is when you get the word that you're going to be laid off. You go to reflection, which now you reflect on what you've done to that point in time and where you need to go. And then there's renewal. That's a migration. Reaction, reflection, renewal. I've actually gone all the way to renewal and then brought right back to reaction. Why? Because I had a job in hand. And then the CEO came down and says, well, he didn't have a CPA, so I can't hire him. They even discuss benefits. You're gonna come across various episodes in your life that require you to dig deep and can think about your brand. That's why personal branding is so important. You have a lot to offer than most people know or are aware of. And what you put on paper is only the tip of the iceberg. Until they talk to you, until you have an opportunity to articulate what you have to offer, they really don't know about you. And that's why personal branding is so important. And of course, it goes without saying, network, network, network. Professional speaking and writing. As I told you, I've been speaking around the world on a variety of topics, not just personal branding, crisis management, project management, communication skills, and the like. Career advancement, taking on new challenging opportunities. Become a subject matter expert. I like to say back in the days of Sarbanes-Oxley, I shouldn't say I coined it, but I used to give every client for Sarbanes socks in a box one-on-one training. And then some of you may also, if you're an independent consultant, you should have a website. A very simple website to have is something called aboutme.com. It's nothing, bare bones, just describes who you are, what you do, but it gives people an idea of what your brand is. Aboutme.com. I'm out there, so you can look me up there as well. I'm also on LinkedIn, so if any of you want to connect on LinkedIn, please look me up. So that brings us to, remember I told you I worked for Arthur Andersen, so I know a thing or two about acronyms. So I said, how do I galvanize what branding really means? So I came up with an acronym that I think everyone can relate to. B stands for believe. And for what do I mean by believe? There's a gentleman back in Greek philosophy lore, and his name is Aristotle. We go back a long way, I got to be honest with you. He talks about the power of persuasion, pathos, logos, and ethos. Ethos is what I'd like to talk about. Strong sense of self, self-confidence. Folks, in Patina Nation or wherever you are in this world, how can you expect anybody to believe in you unless you believe in yourself first? Reputation, that's what branding is all about. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you experience, how you position yourself contributes to your reputation. My favorite letter of the brand acronym is the next one, adaptability, A for adaptability. Why? Because it fuses two words that have such enormous meaning, adapt and ability. Your ability to adapt. How many of you in Patina Nation have been on multiple projects? Would you venture to say each project is the same, or would each project offers unique attributes and unique challenges or opportunities? I would venture to say each one is unique, even though they may be the same theme, like Sarbanes-Oxley, but every client's different in how they implement that. And of course, ability. What you know, who you know, how you can apply things, how you can answer questions. And if you don't have the answer, it's not the end of the world. That's what being resourceful is all about. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, let me get back to you on that. Network, and I'm not talking about IT here. I'm talking about network, network, network. Build your primary network, your secondary, and don't forget the tertiary, the third. And the reason I say that is because I walked into the coffee shop this morning before I came to Patina this morning, and I struck up a conversation with somebody that we don't know each other. And they were talking about something with their friends, and I just happened to overhear, and we got into an engaged conversation about, guess what? Branding. Because they were in transition. They were looking for the next opportunity. 2 weeks ago, I was out at a car wash. Again, I was talking to somebody about what I did for a living, what they did for a living. They were a school teacher. Somebody sitting next to us, literally off to the side, apologized. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but she's like, "You're talking about branding? You know, you could be a real help to local government here." I said, "Oh, wow." So you never know when the next opportunity is going to unveil itself. In other words, it's not always obvious, but it can happen. D is for determination. Goes without saying. You want to be sharp, focused. Your ability, remember what I said in consulting, is not only to become a trusted partner, which to me, in layman's terms, means get your client promoted. Is that actually going to happen? No, but the spotlight's on them that they made the right decision to bring you in at the right time to do the right work. And then the validation is when they invite you back. A final thought on branding before we adjourn for the day, and that is, for those of you who understand what personal branding is by now with what we've discussed, you need to tell yourself when you look in the mirror every morning, personal branding is and always will be a competitive advantage. The fact that you have every C credential under the sun, fantastic. You have a gift for taking exams. That's wonderful. But that means you're qualified. But how you position yourself in the marketplace, the relationships you forge, and I'm going to give you another freebie in this presentation. Everyone hear of financial acronyms called ROI, ROA, ROC, and ROR. ROI is return on investment, yes? No, folks, it's called return on integrity. ROC is return on capital? No, it's return on communication. And lastly, ROR, rate of return. When you're in the consulting business, it's not rate of return, it's return on relationships. Your personal branding adds to these interesting ways of looking at what value you have to offer in every project that you become exposed to. So your credentials and your education say you're qualified. Your personal brand, how you nurture and develop and enhance it over time, over your professional journey, sets you apart from the crowd and will keep you in demand for what it is you have to offer from a subject matter expertise, and also be able to allow you to diversify yourself. Any other questions, Mike, today?
Yeah, I had a question for you. So someone who's currently in a traditional role, maybe they're CFO of a company or they're the supply chain officer of a larger organization. Is somebody like that, should they be thinking about their personal brand? Is it just folks that are doing independent consulting now or in transition trying to figure it out? What about all the folks that are, sort of in, again, traditional roles?
Well, one way I can answer that vividly is I used to be the CFO of the Health Information Exchange for the state of Illinois. And I had to respond to something called the board. Mike, I think you respond to a board.
Yes, I do.
Your brand is on display in front of that board. Your brand is on display to everyone that you affiliate with, either directly or indirectly. So absolutely, unequivocally, the answer is yes. Personal branding applies to anyone from any walk of life, any background, any industry, any vertical, any position within an organization. Whether you're self-proprietor or you're part of an organization, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the public sector, private sector, not-for-profit. I go back to the Rotary Foundation. I did presentations in front of their entire world global leadership. In fact, their presentation room was, I like to call it a mini UN. They had flags from all the different countries, the executives representing those countries from a Rotary standpoint, and I'm thundering away at how to make their operation more better from process improvement standpoint. So you bet my brand was on display, as it was with the CFO position. And today I'm a chief operating officer. My friend's kid with me. The only place left to go is CEO. Well, I guess being part of new transitions, I'm there. But the interesting thing is your brand is on display everywhere you go in everything you do, not just personally, but not just professionally, but even personally. But here's the beauty of it. You are in control. You manage your personal brand. The more often you think about it, whether it's every quarter, and I recommend people update their LinkedIn profile at least twice a year, especially when you're in consulting, because you've been on a variety of projects. You've been exposed to different management styles, different project challenges and opportunities. So the sooner you understand the concept of personal branding and lead with that, as opposed to leading with debits and credits, even though that's important, the sooner you lead with what you represent and what you have to offer and how it relates to what the client's needs and challenges are, the better you are positioned to become a trusted partner. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to just tell them. You want to recommend. You want to be able to be an advocate of what they're doing, an advisor, and be able to be invited back to the party when a future opportunity avails itself. So that's my long-winded way of saying that, yeah, it applies to everyone.
So if I'm developing some more robust thinking about a personal brand, and I'm following this great roadmap you gave us today, do you often suggest people have someone else or a couple of folks that are in their lives kind of listen to the brand or check in with them to, sort of just give them a little bit of advice or some insight into, is that really describing the person?
Absolutely. And one way to do that is getting involved in becoming a mentor, engaged in coaching. If you're not a mentor, maybe you want to be coached by somebody. It also comes into play with the review of your resume. Folks, when you write a resume, you could be the world's greatest gift and knowledge, but the ability to articulate that on paper is one thing. To be able to articulate in person is a totally different thing. But here's the common theme though, and that is always have somebody review, is doing a self audit. That's what I'm getting at. You can do the self audit, but it's better to get other people involved. In fact, we're doing as I mentioned earlier, I asked that branding question, if you could be any brand in the world, which one would you be at every interview that I've done? The reason I do that is because when people submit their resumes, I can tell what's written well and what's not written so well. I can tell if they wrote it or if somebody else did, because I relate it to how they're articulating themselves verbally. When you write a resume or any document you write, for example, three people should look at it. Now, that means you get three different perspectives, but at the end of the day, you get common themes from each one of those. But when it comes to branding, it's so nebulous. Yeah, you have to get other people involved, and you have to talk about what your goals are, personally and professionally, on that professional journey. One way to do that is talk about what you've accomplished, and I guess the best way I can describe this: learn from the past, embrace the present, and plan for the future.
Do you have a personal brand statement, or do you recommend people write this down or keep it someplace? Is it sort of like a vision, mission, values?
I call it a PBM, personal branding message. It's very similar to what everyone here listening was probably heard to, is that what is your 60 to 90 second intro? It's called a personal branding message, and that takes some time to actually figure out what that is. But it basically encapsulates what you have to offer without necessarily getting into the details. And how do you go about doing that? It's a bit of an exercise. It's going from general to specific, but then also keeping it at a level so that people understand and appreciate what you've been doing. That's understanding the industry, understanding the job, understanding the specific attributes that you want to actually present to those that you may or may not already know. And I discussed the personal branding message in my book, actually. It is that typical elevator speech. I don't like to use that analogy, even though it's probably true with people being on elevators, but I like to call it the personal branding message. And it highlights exactly what you are all about, as opposed to saying, here are the degrees I have, or here are the certifications I have. It's more than that.
Yeah, I've actually used the word elevator pitch, but I said in my life, I've never actually gotten into an elevator and told someone in 60 seconds what I'm all about, or had them tell me. So I don't know where that ever came from. But what about, we talked a lot today about the branding and how it fits your independent consulting a picture or message, or if you're working inside of an organization. What about on the personal side? Is there, if you have a brand, is it usually one sort of set of characteristics applies both in your personal life and your business life?
Let me give you another comical story here in terms of my equating the personal and professional side. How many of you here use email on a daily basis? Everybody. How many use instant messaging? I don't like it. It's intrusive, and when it pops up, it bothers me. But other people like it. That's great. Folks, I don't write anything without being complete sentences. but that's me. That's what my brand is all about. It's not about perfection. It's about my personality, my mental mindset, my approach on display at any given moment. If I'm writing an email to somebody, nobody looks at me. They can't see my visual brand, but they can see my written brand. I write in complete sentences, and everything I author is regards Sanjay. I told you I was going to bring a comedy into this. Even if it's to my dad, it's regards Sanjay, not love Sanjay. It's discipline. Almost to the, I don't want to say a flaw, but that's what I lead with. I lead with integrity. Remember I talked about return on integrity. I want people to understand that I embody and personify professionalism in everything I do, even personally. In fact, I have 3 kids, 17-year-old and 2 14-year-olds. The 14-year-olds are a twin, boy and girl, and my twin son came to me one day when he was 6 years old, Mike, and he comes to me and says, "Dad, can I make an appointment with you? Because I'm a very appointment-oriented kind of person." I go, "You're my son." He goes, and then a light bulb went on. So I've been so busy doing everything, that leading with my brand in the way I do things, that I wasn't even adapting to my own son. He wanted to make an appointment with me. I thought it was pretty impressive that he actually asked for an appointment, but it just goes without saying that you lead with discipline, and that's what branding is all about. It's who you are. It's how you are represented in everything you do and everything you say and work with. So does that kind of help, Dan?
Yeah, it does. I when we were getting ready for the program today, I took a shot and wrote down some of the personal brand attributes that I have. It's just, everybody's got to write down your own. And I was just looking at them thinking, they do cross over. You're one person, whether or not you're the CEO of a company or you're a dad or a husband or a friend or brother. And so I'm just looking at my list, and they do carry over. They do. They cross over.
There's a saying.
They really do.
There's a saying: a tiger can't change its stripes. My personality doesn't come in slices. My brand doesn't come in slices. It transfers over in everything I do, to the point where, you get questions saying, "Why are you like that? Why are you so structured like that?" That's just the way I am. That's what we lead with. But more often than not, it's actually more appreciated than it is unappreciated. It may be ridiculed, which is part of life, but that ridicule in itself, believe it or not, is validation for what you actually have to offer.
Yeah, well, very good. Well, that was great. Sanjay, anything else you want to add in closing?
I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be here today. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm thrilled to have been in front of Patina Nation, which, Mike, as I chimed in with you saying, well, I think our mission is beyond everything you have, is to go from Patina Nation to Patina Global. And so if everyone harnesses the power of personal branding, we're on our way.
Well, I certainly like the sound of that, Patina Global. But again, I want to thank Sanjay Patel for joining us today, and ask everybody to regularly visit patinanation.com, see everything we're offering for you. Lots of new stuff coming in the next month or two as well. And I would highly recommend you purchase Sanjay's ebook. It's called From Layoff to Takeoff, 31 Practical Concepts to Make a Meaningful Transition After a Layoff. Sanjay, you also said not always just a layoff, but a transition. If somebody's moving from one company to another, or they were traditional employed, now they're working independently.
Or changing occupations.
Or changing
careers, everything.
Yes,
so.
Excellent. Well, Sanjay, thanks again for joining us today and sharing your great insights.
Thank you very much.
This has been a presentation of the Patina Nation. To watch more content like this, or for more information, please visit us online at www.patinanation.com.